start the record. There we go. Thank you.
Great idea.
It's still telling me I can't share. Somebody else is
Oh,
sharing.
because you have to stop sharing. Yeah. You can't override people like I can apparently. Sorry about that.
Watch out. Okay.
Our meetings were so much more fun than before electronics. I recall some meetings in here that weren't a whole lot of fun there.
It's that different use of the word fun.
I do like the screen thing though.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, there we go.
Okay,
Cozy Valley.
awesome. Thank you so much for having me here today. And I'm just gonna talk about a project we have going on. I think many people on the staff have worked on it, and I'm just one of them. And so I'm gonna try and share a lot of different parts of what we're doing. I'm going to see if I can move forward without, how do you progress when you can't see the, oh, here we go. Sorry. There we go. So Cozy Valley. So Cozy Valley is, I'll show you where it is, the project location. We'll talk about the collaborations we've got going on with this project, some data collection that we're doing. We've put together an existing condition model, and we have a design grant right now that we're working through. And then there's some ongoing plantings that are happening out there. So I wanted to cover all of those things today. So Cozy Valley, as you know, is down near Tenino, and it's in the Scattered Creek watershed, and our project location is hiding behind your faces here, over in this area. So the areas in green are properties owned by the Creekside Conservancy, which is one of our collaborators on this project. And they also have some properties down closer to Independence Valley in Rochester. So the collaboration, this is the area that that we're working on in Cozy Valley. And these green parcels are the ones that are owned by the Creekside Conservancy, but we've also met and talked to all of the landowners who are adjacent. This is this property is owned by a dairy farmer, and then this parcel here is a landowner who's interested in also collaborating with our restoration project. And then this parcel here is the farmer who sold the parcel to the Conservancy. And these folks have been in the valley for a long time. So it's a really neat project because so many people are invested in this area.
Just a quick question. You said
Yeah.
there was a dairy farm sort of in the middle bottom. What kind of farms are the other two on the sides?
These green ones?
No, the parcels that aren't owned by the Conservancy.
Okay, yeah. So I wouldn't necessarily call this a farm. I think that they have a horse barn up there, but we
Okay.
haven't, and we have a site visit scheduled, but we haven't actually gone to their property, and so I haven't had a chance but I wouldn't call them farmers.
Okay, and how about the one on the upper left?
Upper left, so this is, he's had a couple of meat cows in the past year or two, but he owned this whole valley bottom before they sold it, and so he's a retired farmer, I would say.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and these people are rural landowners enjoying their pastoral life. So not a whole lot of farming going on right now. Oh, and the one other parcel I haven't mentioned is this one that is currently for sale, and Amy works for or is a volunteer for the Creekside Conservancy and is working to secure grant funding so we can also do some restoration on that parcel. So that's exciting. Okay, data collection. So before we even got the design grant, I think Karen got some funding to have these shallow groundwater monitoring wells installed all over the valley. And Adam has been monitoring those. I don't know if he talked to you about this part of the project a few years ago or not. Okay, but yeah, they're about 3 feet deep, and they have continuous monitors in them that pick up readings every hour. And they've been doing that since April 2021.
So they just monitor how much water? Or,
Yeah, water
or
depth.
Not quality of it or anything?
Not quality, water depth and temperature right now. And so here's a little bit of the data that we've collected. So you can see all these different wells are all on the same graph here, but the groundwater surface is here at 0. And it's really helped us understand how wet it stays in the summer, which is not very wet. It really dries out. And so that's made it challenging to get plants started down there in the valley, but it's also giving us some understanding of what we can do to try to retain water in the valley and how much isn't there. I mean, and originally when we went into the project, we were thinking maybe we could do some, you know, year-round surface water to manage the reed canary grass, and we now understand that there is just not that much water. So we've gained a lot of information from these. And the other thing that we've gained is that really not a whole lot of above ground flooding happens except for in this one well. So, and when it happens, it's quick and then it drains out fairly quickly. So it's not all winter that it's deep, you know. So I'm going through this really quick, but because I don't have a whole lot of time, but another thing we've been able to look at is water temperature, and you'll see this kind of darker gray section in the graph. This is the temperature that water needs to stay between for salmon fry to be happy. And so we're seeing that in the summertime, water temperatures are above where we want them. And so shading is going to be a really important part of this restoration project to figure out how to keep those water temperatures down.
Great graph.
Isn't it cool? Yeah, Adam did a great job of combining all of this information. So we've got a drone and Adam is our pilot. And so he's been out there to take some photos. Oops, this is looking east kind of from the Central Valley. And in this photo, you can see the eastern parcel that's owned by the Conservancy. And they've been doing plantings here for over 20 years. And so this is pretty big established ash plantations that are doing really well. And then they tried to get things planted in this area, but due to the way the waters flow, and I'll show that in our existing model later, it was really hard to get plants going in this area because water backs up. And then a little bit later, I'm going to show you a picture of some stakes that have been installed in this section of the existing planting. So these are ash, and of course we've all heard about the ash borer headed to the west, and so we're concerned about diversity here, and so we're trying to interplant with other species, and the crew's really been working hard on doing that. So they've gotten a lot more plants in the ground that you can't really see as well. So and this is the west end of the valley, and reed canary grass is the major inhabitant. And this morning, I watched a great webinar about something they did up in the up near Squim, a restoration project. The contractor messed up and had to do on this project they were doing, and they had to do a mitigation. And the mitigation they came up with was actually scraping the reed canary grass out of like a half-acre part of this wetland. They took a foot, you know, all those rhizomes and everything, scraped them all out. And because of the timing of when they did it, the willow seed and the poplar seed landed in there and sprouted. It is the most beautiful, you know, self-seeded restoration and then all of this seed that was just existing in the soil also came up. It was really amazing. So I don't know that would happen that if we scraped out here, but that really is our intention, to figure out a way that we can get it permitted, that we could just scrape that reed canary grass out because it's really challenging to do anything else.
Are any of those critical areas under your growth management?
Yeah, that is wetland.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a challenging permitting situation,
Okay.
but I'm not above trying.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll see what we can do. Yeah, and you know, another thing that we've been looking at is kind of the historic context here with geology. This is a really interesting valley. I don't know if you've been up there on Churchill Road, but you're driving along that highway out leaving Tenino towards the east, and there's a road called Churchill that goes up across the bike path. So it goes up the hill, and then there's two really high valleys up there. One is a little higher than Cozy Valley, and there's some theories about the geology of the area that the glacier came down and actually dammed that valley up so much that the water ran over those hills down to the Skookumchuck. And so those valleys are really flat, and it's not sloped out so much as just being flat. And that's what we found in our existing condition model too. But
I noticed the citation, Brett's 1913. Is that the same Brett's with the Zuma flood? I bet it is.
Probably, yeah. He was a pretty prolific guy, I think. So here's our existing condition model for the 2-year storm. And so to do that, we had Mason CD out to survey all of the ditches And then they use the LiDAR that's existing and combine those to make a nice surface for us to use. And then we ran it through this model and got our inputs from StreamStats, which is a USGS platform that kind of generates how much precipitation is estimated in all these areas. So I was able to put inputs all around the valley, and that's how you can see like water coming off the hill here and up here. So we ran the water through like a 2-hour steady state storm, and this is what it does. It comes from this, the east side of the valley and down this ditch. And then because there's culverts in this driveway kind of blocks the flow, and this culvert is failed here. So the water runs up along the driveway and then through these culverts that are under this driveway, and it backs up, we'll see as we go through the rest of the model, up into this eastern part of the valley. And then you see this big backup of water here. So I'm just gonna go through the bigger storms so you can see it backing up.
So those ditches were created to try to dry it out, suck the water away.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not tiled though.
Not that, if it is, it's not working very well, and it doesn't have anywhere to go either. Yeah, so this is the 2-year storm, back a little bit farther, looking at a bigger part of the valley, and so 2-year, 10-year.
What does that mean? 2-year, 10
It
years?
just means that the amount of water that falls over a certain period of time. Yeah, so, and it means the type of storm that doesn't happen very often. So a
Oh.
2-year storm might happen every
Oh,
2
my-
years in the past. Right now,
Okay.
that's not really true.
Right,
It's
like the
happening
100-year
Yeah. It's like every 3 years,
Yeah.
we get 2-year storms of winter probably,
Gotcha.
but mostly. That,
Thanks, thanks.
yeah, you're right. It's not very easy to, it's not very descriptive of what's actually happening. But if you look at how the water is backing up here, you see this big flat spot that fills here, and then it's also filling up behind the driveway. And this is the 100-year storm. So the whole bottom of the valley is full of water. And how much time do I have? Am I doing okay, or should I hurry up?
I don't have a clock.
It's 5:15.
Okay,
Okay.
maybe another 5-ish minutes to wrap
Okay,
up.
I'm almost done. So this farmer, of course, is disturbed by the amount of water on her fields. And it's hard for her to get across this driveway at this point. And so when it's flooding. So this is a concern to her, and it's beautiful to us because, you know, it's a wetland that's full of water. And so there's a lot of kind of design constraints on this project, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And different people have different interests. So just this is a cross section of the valley, and you can see in this upper picture, I've drawn kind of the line of where this graph below is demonstrating. And you can see from this how the valley is just so flat. And then there's a culvert under Churchill Road. And we were thinking, well, maybe the culvert is backing everything up. And if the culvert was bigger or wasn't there, if like there was a bridge, maybe this would drain faster. And so in the model, we took the culvert out and made a bigger opening. And what we found was that even without the culvert, the narrowness of the channel down here in the woods here constricts the flow and causes it to back up. So the culvert is causing some restriction. You can see these dashed lines. This is with the culvert, and then the ones without the culvert, it drops off because it gets steeper on the other side, but it's still restrained just by the natural channel. So that was kind of an interesting finding with the model. And then this is a cross section across the valley, and you can see that this is the channel that's a little on the north side or in the middle of the valley. And then there's a channel that doesn't get used because of this blocked culvert on the south side of the valley. And there's a big elevation difference. So in these different storms, you know, there's a lot of water backed up in there. And then I wanted to show you just what it looks like out there. There's the ditch, and there's the reed canary grass. And we're hoping to add some diversity and shade, and maybe not, you know, so back in the day when there was a glacier and it was all backed up, it was probably kind of lake bottom, right? Really flat. And then when it grew back, it could very much have looked, I have a great picture. me show you something like this. This is a forested wetland that's just on the other side of Churchill Road and, you know, amazing wetland vegetation under ash trees, basically. That's kind of one reference reach we have to look at as far as our restoration goes. And then this is a picture of what's been done so far with the ash plantation. And I just wanted to kind of quickly hit what our goals were to maintain lower water temperatures for juvenile salmon, expand the rearing habitat in the area, support the volume and duration of water going into Scatter Creek. That's a real issue, retaining water in the valley to improve infiltration and to support late season flows in Scatter Creek. Improve habitat. There's elk and bear that are commonly seen in that valley. So it's you know, tucked away so much and there's such forested hills on both sides that it's really well used. The elk herd goes over to Scoop and Chuck Valley and down, and I think up to the north further as well. There's a bird survey being conducted currently, the whole year round. Somebody's checking it quarterly, I think. And then restore natural flow patterns to the valley and, you know, maybe plug the channels up and just have a wetland bottom, but we'll have to work on how we're going to do that, and then reduce flood impacts to neighbors. So we have kind of some preliminary ideas, but I'm not going to go over those yet because they're pretty preliminary. But this, I was promising a picture of these stakes that the crew put in the ash, you know, underplanted in the ash recently. These are cottonwoods, and they are,
Yeah, they're big.
they
I've
are
never seen
really
such
big.
stakes.
I guess they had a pneumatic pounder that they were
Wow.
using for a while, and then they just had to move on to a fence post pounder due to mechanical issues. But yeah, big stakes. So it'll be fun to see how those do. And then there's this pond up here that was a restoration project that was done, I think, late 90s, early 2000s, with the engineer from Mason. And so these spruce were planted back then, and really nice big trees. So anyway, that is what I have to share. Does anyone have any questions?
It's nice to see the fruit. I think we've been working in there for 25 years or so. Cool.
So the landowner doesn't mind the water there as long as they can get through their road.
So I think that the landowner accepts that that is a natural event, but I think that we could gain some traction with our restoration efforts if we get some funding to improve that road and restore those culverts so that they're not causing blockages. And then I think our approach currently is going to be to really focus on the east side and do some work to spread out the water that's up there and not impact that landowner so much, to gain some trust, I think. And really come up with a strategy to address the west end over time, but not first.
You said it so nicely on our tour too. It's this really flat system. It dries up in the summer. It needs to have water in it. How can we figure out where to put flooding in a spot that is convenient for those that want it and not for the ones that don't? So it's a fun project.
Yeah, it's a fun one.
Just a quick question. So you mentioned several times work that Mason CD had done. Why is Mason doing that work?
Yeah, so
As opposed to us?
sure. So one of the ways that the CD system is set up is that there are cluster engineers, and so there's funding for the Mason Engineering Department to do work in Thurston County. And so we want to take advantage of that as much as possible.
There's some self-service.
So
It's still us doing the
Yeah.
work.
No, and I know the
contracted.
cluster engineering part. I figured that was the answer. Okay, thank you. Anything else?
I think the next time we have a tour with legislators, we show them this little video of some of these slides beforehand, like just
Oh, good.
5 minutes really quick. Here's what we're going to see.
Good idea, yeah.
Yeah. I love the malls.
Okay, well, thank you
Yeah.
for educating us and showing us what you're doing. That's it's interesting and wonderful. Thank you for being here, taking time out. You're welcome to stay. You're welcome to leave. Do what you need to do.
Okay, I wanna find out what goes on here, so I'm staying.
Okay, well, then we'll move on to the next item here, which is an update on our new office.
Good news, we still have one. Thanks for meeting here in our old space. We are still moving along furiously and frantically to get things finished, but we are just right at the tail end and stuff changes overnight. So we're excited about that. We are anticipating keeping this office space open to the public with Sophia, thank you for being here, through January 31st. So through close of business on the last day of our lease. We're gonna do our final walkthrough and stuff with them at that time, but we're gonna keep this space open. Our anticipation from our landlord is that we will have all of our inspections, all the construction finished, and all of our occupancy permits, that's the kind of the big one we're waiting for, on the 31st. So we're giving a little bit of lag time for folks, you know, that week, because that's on a Wednesday. And we're anticipating that staff will be in the office or able to use the new office on February 5th, which is the following Monday. Again, this timeline could be sooner, but we'll be pleasantly surprised if that happens. So right now that's kind of our best estimate of when we'll be open to the public. So there could be a slight disruption on the 1st and 2nd of February when our offices are closed for the transition still. We have suspended our soil testing and our equipment rental programs until we're back up and functioning in the new space. It's not really disruptive at the end of January. So we've even looked at historical data and there's not usage of either of those programs.
I don't know, I asked Serena, I haven't heard back, just.
For Betsy. No, we are gonna honor any
I'm not
existing
worried.
rentals. So if we did have like a poultry rental or something, that would be the only type of equipment that would be used in January. We'll honor that.
So if I was to go to the website now under the soil stuff, I would find a message there that don't do it now.
You would find a message that says, we're moving, we're in transition. We anticipate our soil testing services to be open the week of February 5th.
Great.
Stay tuned for more information.
Great.
We don't want to give a hard and fast deadline because this is construction. And we are not in control. So yes, the message is already on there.
Okay.
And it's gone out. And we will have another, hopefully we'll have more information when our February newsletter goes out, and then we'll be able to share that, you know, start sharing some of that marketing. So staff are working primarily remotely this week and next week. There are a few folks that need to come into the office for things, or there's meetings that they're having just off-site. But largely folks are not in either office. We need to have our occupancy permit before we can officially work in our new building. We don't want to get in the way of different things that are happening in either space as we wrap up this one and get this one set up. So, yeah.
I have in front of me the probably automatic reply I got when I tried to reserve poultry equipment. And it does say, you'll hear from us in a few days. So I don't know if more people will request, you might want to change the auto reply to
For poultry.
be a little.
As soon as we can.
We'll make
know.
sure that that's consistent with the other ones. There's a separate form for that one. So we'll make sure it's consistent with the
yeah.
other forms.
Yeah, and
Thanks
I
for
mean,
sharing.
I knew that, but you know, other people don't, so.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're trying to direct with all of these pieces, folks, back to one central point on our website to stay up for information too, so that little pieces don't get missed and there's confusion that's going out there, because we have this information in so many different
If there's
places.
not confusion, I will be like amazingly surprised.
We want to minimize.
Yeah.
Minimize the amount of confusion. So, but we have been putting the marketing out there for quite some time that we are transitioning to this new space. So,
Mhm. Are
yeah.
you gonna take that thing with you? The
We'll just have to see. We'll just have to see what fits. So mostly the stuff that you're seeing, you know, aside from a couple of pieces of technology, are not coming with us.
Oh,
So, yeah,
so lovely.
it is lovely. And we are moving into a smaller space, but more functional. So we're being very judicious about our footprint, because we also have a lot of stuff that we need to use regularly to do the business that we do. We have to store it somewhere. So
Can that be outside or would it fall apart?
it would definitely fall apart. I don't think it's going to be discarded. So
Okay. Someone
we're having conversation with partners, because this was part of a big collaborative art project. And so there are other ones that live in other places around Olympia, and so it might join its friends. We'll
So
see.
you mentioned that a lot of what we're seeing isn't coming. What's happening to it? Because we're not just gonna leave it here and walk away from it,
Unfortunately not. Yes,
Yes.
so we have a public auction.
Yeah.
That's tomorrow.
right?
Most all of this stuff is included in that. We're hopeful that there'll be some folks, we've opened it up, you know, and done a lot of marketing with other partner organizations, schools, teachers, you know, community groups and things like that, nonprofits. So we're hoping that a lot of it goes there. We will continue to surplus it following our surplus policy. Otherwise, whatever needs to go to DS will go there. Whatever doesn't have value will be recycled in some way, shape, or form.
And when you say, the auction, are we talking a physical auction, or virtual auction, or a hybrid auction?
It is an in-person only silent auction. So there's no auctioneer, nothing's live.
Yeah, you just come in and put your bids on it. Okay.
So, like, you're saying this table is being, guess I'm curious why this would be not useful to us, why we're replacing things.
Because we're getting upgraded new stuff from L&I for free.
For free, okay.
Yeah, so they had to move, they were moving out of one of their office buildings and they were surplusing all of their brand new furniture.
Okay. As long as it's free,
And we got it for free. Yeah, absolutely. So you'll see a lot of new stuff in our new space, and a lot of it is more compact because we have a smaller space.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of giant, heavy desks here that are not gonna fit 3 to a room, you know, or whatever we need to have happen in our new space. But the really compact ones that attach to the cubicle wall kind of that we're getting from L&I, you know, will be easier and more functional. So we're leaving a lot of the old kind of broken or heavy things here. And then we were really super fortunate with the stuff from L&I. We have a new conference room table, lots of new conference room chairs that are,
Great.
we're very fortunate again. I'll just repeat that.
Did you touch base with the adjacent districts to see if they can use it?
They came by today. Yep, and reviewed. They took one desk, but they tried. But
Better-
yes,
Better than nothing.
better than nothing. Hey, yep. We did open it up to districts first.
Thank you.
Okay, so 10 days from now, well, a week from tomorrow will be our last day in this space, the 31st. And then 12 days from now, we should be up and running.
In the new
February
location.
5th in the new location.
Of course, if we can do it sooner, we will.
Yeah.
But that's what we're anticipating.
It's not that long, really.
Yeah, that's what we're anticipating now. So as minimal disruption to staff and the public as possible. And this couldn't have come at a better time too of the year. So.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else on the new office piece?
Not on this item. We have an item on the board meeting agenda for other
Talk
stuff.
about the money side of things.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, well then let's move on to the next item, which is rates and charges process.
Yeah, I'm gonna share my screen for this one. I can stop you. Don't worry,
Okay.
Sophia. Realize not everybody could be rude like that. So this was in my ED report. I'm just gonna pull it up here. So we have something to look at. This is just all a proposal. Mostly what I was hoping to do is start a conversation around our rates and charges process. These are the required steps that TCD is responsible for as we pursue renewing our rates and charges. And this is sort of a proposed timeline. And so what I wanted to talk with the board about tonight is starting to have a framework of how we're going to go about this, the time of year the board would like to tackle certain pieces. This is all working backwards from that August 1st completion deadline, when we have to have our completed proposal package submitted to Thurston County. They'll run their identical process in the second half of the year, but really what we're focusing on here is ours. So there'll need to be some, consideration and discussion, by the board around setting rates. We are set at the cap, it covers a fraction of the cost of doing business at TCD. It would take statutory change for us to increase that. We're currently coming to the end of a 5-year term. Historically, we've had 10-year terms. This has been an ongoing conversation with the board. And so really what we're looking for is, when would you like to start having those conversations? When should we set our public hearings? Those all have required public notice procedures that go along with that, community outreach, expectations, and things like that. So this is just the intro for some conversation.
It looks like the hearings and the public outreach type stuff are later than the legislative session. There is legislation about
Yeah.
raising the rates and charges cap.
I was
Yes.
gonna ask about that because there hasn't been anything in the WACD and Ryan's updates about that. So I was wondering if there was anything afoot.
There was a resolution on it.
Yeah, but I'm just talking, is there a piece of legislation
I
that's
haven't
been
seen it.
introduced?
I haven't seen
Because
it.
we're getting quite close to cutoff dates now. So it seems that it'd be kind of hard just logistically for anything to get through the session at this point.
Yeah, I think they have literally bigger fish to fry.
Yeah. So,
And I'm not sure that they'll get total support across the state from all of the WACD.
well,
members.
yeah, that, we know that. Yeah,
Anyway.
so it sounds like our assumption going forward is that we have a maximum rate and a maximum term that's not likely to change under state law.
Yep, that's what this
That's where I put my money.
assumes, but also given this timeline, if there were changes, we
Yeah.
would be able to know about
Sure.
it here.
Yeah, that's the point I was trying to make.
Yeah.
Wait, so the term for the current one was 5 years?
Yeah.
But we're gonna try to increase it to 10, are we not?
Well, state law allows us to go a maximum of 10 years, and I think that's part of the discussion we need to have is
Yeah.
what do we ask for?
Right.
Last time we had a robust debate about how much to ask for. And we, as a board, decided on 5 years as an appropriate ask at the time. We might come up with a different duration this time.
Okay, so we're not discussing that right now.
No,
Okay.
really process. But one of the things question I had about process, and I wasn't on the board
Mhm.
5 years ago. I joined right after that, but it seemed to me that there was a lot of consultant work that went into that whole justifying the charges.
Yeah.
And was that a one-time thing because rates and charges was a new system for us? Or do we have to go through a similar work with consultants to build a financial model?
We don't have to redo that work. If the statute changed and we were able to collect more funding, the board could choose to go the consultant route. Ultimately, what they did was help us calculate, of all the work that we do at TCD, what would be the per acre cost if it all was funded through rates and charges. We know that that would be far exceeding the statutory cap,
Yeah.
even back then. And we do, tremendous amounts of work above and beyond that now. So that was really their modeling system and helping us determine if what we would like to capture through per acreage charges, what is an indirect benefit, and what is a per parcel benefit.
Yeah,
And so, and how do we set those rates that cover the acreage and that cover each individual? And so what we ended up with was close to the cap on both of those pieces, because we have such mixed services that we provide at TCD that it does provide both the indirect benefit of people that live in a watershed that's being restored versus this producer's getting a manure storage structure on site. Both of those have a direct and indirect benefit. So we have not changed our book of business. We've definitely diversified it and enhanced it since then. It isn't going to affect the numbers. We're just doing more things.
but we do have more parcels in the county presumably now than we had then because of subdivisions and short plats and all these other things that have happened, right?
I've pointed that out.
Yeah.
That always struck me as being kind of sick. We get more money if there's more subdivisions.
Yeah.
And it doesn't change our rate collection system data at
Yeah,
all.
but it changes the projections of revenue
It does. And so
Yeah.
every year when there are more parcels in the county, because it does, every year there's
Yeah.
more parcels in the county. They update the tax roll to include all the parcels.
Interesting. I think it'd be interesting for us to take a look at some point in this process, how have the number of parcels in the county changed over the last 5 years?
Mhm.
And to the extent that there's any information or assumptions from the county about the future, what does that look like? And maybe they don't have anything, but I think it'd be worth
That's
trying to
smart.
ask about.
The other thing, projecting out 5 years, I don't think the rate and charges cap will be raised personally, but it could be.
Yeah, I think you're
So
right.
we, I don't know if we want to think 5 years again or 10 years. But, you know, predicting the future is always tough.
Yeah. Well, I can say that the feedback I got from at least one county commissioner is, why didn't you ask for 10 years last time? You probably would have gotten it.
Oh,
And more recently, encouraging us to ask for 10 years this time, because right now, he feels there's a supportive majority on the commission
Yeah.
that would give us the maximum.
and can they always just say, well, we'll give it to you, but we're only doing 5. They can,
Yeah,
it's
we
not
could,
an all or
we could
nothing.
ask for 10 and they could give us anything between 0 and 10.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's not like, oh, you asked for 10 and we don't want to do 10, so you don't get anything. Okay.
Yeah,
And I think if the rate of charges cap is changed and we're at 10 years, we could probably renegotiate that some way.
We can renegotiate at any time too, so you
Okay,
can
so
definitely,
that
but
takes
if
some
it,
of the pressure off. then.
yeah, if it changes next year, we can go back and show them the numbers. Yeah,
yeah.
and, you know, or whatever the board decides, but yeah, we can definitely go back. at
So
any
I
point.
think the graph in the financial report that Yen sent out
Yeah.
showed rates and charges over time staying fairly constant, but that's probably not true because the number of parcels has changed. So we've probably gotten slightly more revenue over the last 5 years, but maybe it's just budget cuts at that level.
It is. I'll show you the,
I don't know, I drive up
graph.
Sleater Kinney and see all those parcels that are there, you know.
so if you can look really closely at this green line here,
Yeah.
how it's on the line to the left, but when you get to the right, that dot is slightly above the line.
Mhm.
That is the increase in our rates and charges funding calculated accurately on this graph. But our grant revenue is just so exponentially greater, which this tells a great story, right? It tells that great return on investment. This is staying constant, but we're still leveraging that money. And it takes time, right, to write state and federal grants. It takes a few years for that money to come in. And so we're experiencing that.
What great ammunition for when we talk to the commissioners.
I guess what I would want to see at some point is what the first dot above 2019, the first green dot there, what was that value? And what's the value of 2023? And it's not much of a
Yep.
change, but it is a change.
We have all of that data.
Yeah,
It would be easy
I
to
think
share.
that'd be useful to have.
Yeah, absolutely. And then what are the projections for the future? We can
Yeah.
definitely work on that.
Yeah, to the
I
extent we
I
know.
propose before we go public, we do a dry run with the board of the presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As you probably saw in my report as well, we are working on putting together a whole messaging campaign around
Yeah.
this and the CEC work that'll be really specific and tailored and
Yeah.
concise, so.
Yeah, and I think we need to think about like how we bring that presentation forward to the county. My recollection last time as a spectator was it was largely a little bit of introduction from, I think, Paul at the time, maybe, I don't remember who. But you largely did all of the work with the commissioners in terms of presentation. Partially because I think there wasn't a capacity on the board at that time or whatever to do that, but maybe this time around it might look a little bit different with a more engaged, more competent board in terms of how we present this.
Great. I look forward to working on this with you.
Yeah. And I think that there's some political value
Yes.
in those of us who are elected officials here, being able to talk person to person to elected county officials.
That's very smart.
I have a question about the public hearings. And as I recall, the participation was very minimal. That we had, I believe we had 3 of them.
For our process or the
Our
county?
process around the county. And I just wonder, I mean, they cost staff time, you know, sometimes I bring up these little things, but I just want to keep a perspective of, is it really that hard for someone to drive to one place in Thurston County versus having them 3 times in 3 different locations?
I think that's a fair point, but the other thing that's changed in the interim is we can do some of this virtually.
Mhm.
So we don't have to have people driving from multiple locations, so maybe we can do it in one
Okay,
situation and still feel like we have robust opportunities for people countywide to participate.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Okay.
One of the things we've done historically is done around the county and nobody ever comes.
That's what I mean, and
Yeah.
I just don't wanna,
Yeah,
Yeah, would be a cogent with the Open Public Meetings Act by offering a public
Yeah.
venue plus a virtual.
yeah, I like that. It could streamline some of our staff work without diminishing the public's opportunity to
Yeah,
participate.
And this is exactly the feedback that I'm hoping to hear from the board and tee up for even more robust discussion in the future. Because it will tell us how we should build that approach and
Yeah.
what you'd like to invest where and how.
Do you have any questions for us? Things that are burning in your heart that you really want to ask, but?
I think at this point, I think this is probably gonna be a standing item at the work session. But just having an understanding of when you would like to really start to have some in-depth discussion about just these pieces, the approach and all of these things, because that's gonna help us. We'll want to do some of that groundwork discussion and ironing out some of these pieces ahead of when we're setting our public hearing date. But that will be the next step, right? Is outline, the requests, the mechanisms of community engagement, the messaging, the presentations, and then setting that public hearing date. And so kind of understanding the board's thought process of when you'd like those things to occur will be really helpful so we can plan ahead.
I know you think about these things. It'd be good to talk with whoever's the new Romero
Yeah.
and say, this is what we're thinking. What do you think? Or with your contact with Ty, here's what we're thinking.
Once we have something that we've thought of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, no surprises.
Yeah, it will be great to engage a new partner there.
Kind of greasing the skids a little bit.
I
That's a
agree.
logging term, by the way.
I think it would be, because much of this work falls to staff.
Mhm.
I think the next step, at least in my mind, is let's see a robust list. I mean, you had kind of the macro
Yeah.
steps.
Yeah.
What's the flow of work look like that's realistic from a staff perspective? So that then we can overlay, what does that then mean for board involvement? And what are those points and what are those states for? Because we could say, well, we want to do a public hearing in April and staff might not be ready in April, or, we could say we want to do it in July. Well, we could have done it 2 months ago, but we don't know those things. You guys know those things.
Okay, yeah, we can absolutely make a recommendation inclusive of the work that we have to do on our
Yeah,
side too.
and just giving us a better sense of what these steps are, how we're gonna do outreach and
Yep.
how, just the various pieces.
Sure. That sounds great.
And please have a how to do this book. Keep track of the steps, so whoever comes
Yes.
after us will know what the hell's going on.
Absolutely. Our team has done a really good job of trying to put all of our processes in
Yeah.
writing so that people can come in at some point. It's a good point.
Do you feel like you have what you wanted to get from us tonight at this point?
Yeah, I think we'll prepare for more in-depth discussion about this in February. If there's any last little questions or pieces that we need direction to inform a robust plan, we'll cover that next month and
Yeah.
then be
And we'll
able to
just
move
keep,
forward.
as you say, this will be a standing item going forward and we'll just keep coming back to it.
Great. Yeah,
Okay,
that sounds wonderful.
all right, let's move on. We got about 15 minutes or so left here for the work session. Let's talk about the CEC. See where we're at with that.
And this is probably an even higher level sort of conversation than the rates and charges, mostly to tee up conversation for February. So staff has been working amidst the move to pull together that draft sort of multi-year phased approach for how to sort of tackle this CEC piece, when and how to explore funding, items to focus on, goals for each year. I included a little snippet of this in my ED report as well, but what are the financing strategies and suggested timelines? When and how do we explore those? Where are they at? Site selection and procurement, what are the steps we need to take there? Again, not drilling down all the way into the weedy detail on this, but laying forward a pretty solid plan that we can share with the board and in draft first and say, how does this feel as a roadmap? Are we meeting the goals and benchmarks that you'd like to see? Are there particular challenges or hangups that we're anticipating that we're going to realize? I know really early on in our conversations, the board was had a goal of trying to do the property sort of site selection process this calendar year, in hopes that we can run that in tandem with our rates and charges and have a property, that we've selected by the end of the year. And so, with that type of a goal, what are the pieces we need to do to realize that, and then we can have that conversation after this is the ideal roadmap. We can have that conversation about, are these pieces realistic? Do we have challenges here? Are there other opportunities that have emerged? I imagine again that this is going to be another living document that we're going to continue to update, and our plans are going to continue to adapt as reality changes around us. But all I can say is we've definitely learned a ton in this process with this move and this construction phase, really understanding a lot more of the detailed steps and components that go into a lot of these pieces, from engaging with real estate professionals to all of the different pieces of permitting and construction. Of course, the CEC is a much larger scale, but it's really helping inform the process of developing something in a stepwise fashion. So we're looking forward to presenting a draft of this approach in February for more robust conversation and reaction and revision by the board.
One of the things that came up in the WACD meeting was Mike Tobin, so you may know where I'm going with this. He's been,
Who is Mike Tobin?
he's the manager of the North Yakima District, Sarah's equivalent over there. Outspoken WSU graduate, gets under most people's skin, but he really knows his stuff really well. Anyway, he's been working with the Department of Enterprise Services.
Mhm.
And he said that they can help with construction, vehicles and stuff. And they're gonna be doing a survey with the commission on the needs of CDs around the state. 'Cause there's lots of CDs doing the same type of thing. But I suggest talking with Mike prior to the February meeting, just pick his brain a little more.
Okay.
Just, it sounded really good to me.
Yeah.
He said he just kind of handed it off and they just did all the grunt work.
I have heard both opportunity and challenge in working through the DES process, and I don't know enough about it, so I will definitely reach out to Mike and learn a little more. I've also started working with the EDC as well,
Yeah.
to see what kinds of, at least in the site selection phase, what kinds of opportunities and services they can provide, and it was strongly encouraged by our county leadership to work with the EDC on this project. So that's great. I will put that on our list, Doug.
When you bring that plan back in February, I'd be curious. So as a board, we've told you CEC is super high priority for the board this year. And I know that a lot of other, or at least several other staff were really involved in the current move from site selection to everything.
Mhm.
So to what degree is this gonna be Sarah work, and to what degree is it other staff work, and who are those staff? Just so we
Yeah.
have a sense of how this comes together.
It's going to continue to be a collaborative effort for sure. We are definitely, we have a very diverse skill set on our staff team, and we want to continue to leverage those different strengths amongst our staff team into the CEC project.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm saying is just tell us who those people are and what skills they bring to the table.
Sure,
So that we're
absolutely.
also aware that this is a part of their work next year.
Yeah, in addition to myself, it'll be Nora and anyone she delegates from a community outreach perspective, messaging, marketing, any public engagement processes, updating information that we're sharing out, tools and resources, managing professional services consultants that might help with that. Susan, from a project management level, she is really excellent at managing things to a very detailed level in terms of process and making sure bits and pieces are following along. She'll be kind of my right-hand person in this. As far as larger strategic conversations, partnerships, you know, kind of the overarching management of consultants and partners, that'll still be me. Susan will do a lot of the follow-up pieces of that. She'll do also a lot of the financial strategy and preparing and presenting that piece, obviously. And I imagine that there'll be other folks on the administrative team that might help with some of the bits and pieces here. Those three folks will be the primary on this at the stage.
Exactly what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Related to that, taking the negative side, people change. We haven't had a lot of staff turnover.
Mhm.
But be thinking of contingencies, if somebody leaves, how we fill that. I mean, I don't know how much thought I would put into that or what the chances are, but things happen.
Yeah, we've done a really great job over the last year of really getting tight-knit departments with cross-training within those departments. So we've invested a lot of time in that. I think we're better positioned this year than we ever have been.
And I just have a little feedback from one of the staff that I have, that I play games with. You know, and she just said that since they've unionized, it's like night and day, you know, she said it was like, couldn't make a living, couldn't, and now, you know, she has health insurance, she can count on a raise every year, or a cost of living raise, and so I think shared that others feel that way too, that she feels very secure here and very happy to be working here. So I think we're in that good position where people aren't leaving for better pay, at least.
Yeah, and that's a good place to be going into a contract negotiation with the union this year, for sure.
Yeah.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Okay, we'll stop there for now for this month for CEC. And we'll move on to the last item here on our work session, which is our reports. And Betsy, you get to go first tonight.
All right.
On the
Well,
reports.
I am happy to give to you, Sarah, this tiny little envelope. I can't believe how tiny it is. It's a gift certificate
Oh,
on behalf of the entire board. And thanks for all the above and beyond, and just to show our appreciation for you.
thank
Just
you.
kind of an end of year, it's a gift certificate for Don Watson, and I know
You can't go wrong there.
that's what we've heard, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, you'll have to join
And
me.
it's close to you, so.
that's
Well,
for
thank
you and your family. We're not going to join you.
The other family, yes, the other family.
The other family.
Yes. No, thank you. That's really kind.
Thank you very much.
Very kind.
for all you've done.
Happy to do it.
Anything else, Betsy?
No. No, the crew started working on my property last week again, so I'm happy to see the new interns, 6-month interns. Went out to meet them. Did we have that many interns last year? I mean, there were 3 of them, or?
It ebbs and
6.
flows.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's, we can have as many as 5 folks typically
Mhm.
for one crew lead. And that it ebbs and flows depending on cycles and other life circumstances and things. So
Well, they're very delightful and
they're great.
happy to meet me and tell me what they knew and what they're learning, and
That's fantastic. We've got a fair amount of new folks on our crew and they're really enjoying it.
good.
All right, Doug, anything other than WCD, NECD stuff that we'll hear about later?
Yeah, one thing, I'm gonna apply to be reappointed. Need to do that formally, so that's the formal notice.
Is your term also expiring
Yeah.
May or whatever it is this year?
Yes.
Okay. Good. All right, I think my only update is, I have enrolled my own farm in the Farm My Yard program. So I've been working with Tina to put it in that program because I'm radically changing our whole approach to farming this year.
Oh, yeah?
I'm largely taking a year off to go fallow and not doing a CSA and transitioning to a no-till system, but I'm going to lease some of the farm to a person, Laura, who was my intern last year, who's been interning here to put together this climate change conference. And so we're doing that through the Farm My Yard program, and Laura will lease land from me. She wants to be a farmer. I'm gonna help her kind of get
Okay.
started, and she's gonna own a farm stand on our site instead of a CSA this year. And so gonna give me a little more flexibility in my life this summer.
Yeah.
It's gonna give me a chance to transition to a whole new production model with no-till, and it's gonna support a young farmer. So it's
Great.
pretty exciting, and it's all being done through the auspices of Farm My Yard. So Laura will have the support of Tina through that program.
That's so exciting.
So, yeah, you didn't know this.
No,
Okay, well, there you go. I
you
figured-
surprised me twice in 10 minutes. This is
Never know
not
what I got
common.
up my sleeve. Yeah.
Oh, and
Apparently.
that reminds me, I'm leaving town March 20th for 3 to 4 weeks, so I will miss the March meeting. I don't think I'll miss the April meeting though.
Okay.
But it's a road trip, so
You know, things happen.
we're going to Big Bend to see the total eclipse of the Joshua Tree and lots of other places.
Oh, I want to hear all about
Wow.
Joshua Tree, because that's on our radar for the fall. So
Yeah.
we'll talk later.
All right.
Okay, last up, work session. Anything from you, Sarah?
I don't think there's anything pressing that we're not gonna talk about in the next meeting, so, thank you for the surprises during this meeting.
All right.
Should I log in for the board meeting?
You're captured on this camera, so
Oh,
it's your
okay.
choice.
Okay, great.
Okay, so with that, it is 5:57 and 3 minutes ahead of schedule. We'll end the work session here. We'll take a break and we'll come back at 6:30 for our monthly board meeting. All right,
Perfect.
we'll stop the recording for now.
Yeah,
All right.
and
What you making over there, Katrina? Did somebody
6:30.
make-
All right.
I mean, somebody. Thank you.
Welcome back. It is 6:30 PM and we are going to begin we're going to begin our January board meeting for Thurston Conservation District Board of Supervisors. For the record, we are doing an audio recording of this, and we also have 3 members of the board here at present. Betsy DeGreda, Doug Rushton, and myself, TJ Johnson, the chair. So we have a quorum, but we are missing a couple of members who aren't with us tonight. First item up here on our agenda is an agenda review. I would like to pull item A off of consent and put it for action immediately after consent, if you all are okay with that. Welcome.
Hey, we get you some chairs. Good to see you.
Yeah. Okay, so no, any objections to that?
No,
Okay,
I also have just tiny comments about the NACD REPI MOA.
you want to pull it
So
off?
I
of
guess I
consent?
want to pull that. It's just a tiny
Okay.
question.
So we're pulling item item B and item C off of consent. We'll deal with those immediately following our single item that's left on consent. Okay, so with that, I'll need a motion on our revised agenda.
I move to approve the advised agenda.
A second.
This is gonna be easy with just 2 of you here to make motions in seconds tonight. Okay, so moved and seconded to approve the agenda. Let's see, Betsy,
Aye.
Doug,
Aye.
chair votes aye. Okay, so we've got an agenda. Now we're on consent and we have 1 item left on consent, which is our minutes from last month, December 12th. So we'll need a motion on the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve consent. The vote on that, Betsy,
Aye.
Doug,
Aye.
chair votes aye, so we've approved consent. That takes us to the 2 items we pulled off of consent. Item 1, oops, do we have them back up there yet? We do not. We'll have them in front of us in just a second here.
Just January.
So The first item we pulled off consent, I think, was the January financial report
And year end.
and year-end
Mhm.
financial report. And I wanted to pull that and just ask Sarah to provide a little context, particularly on the year-end part of that report before we take action on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited about this piece. And I'll put a graph up here really quick. But we ended a really strong year in 2023. We put a ton of conservation on the ground. Stay tuned for this pending graph. Here we go. I'm gonna show a couple pieces for you here. We're gonna really quickly focus on this item here. These were expenses that went out to date. 2023 is the last item, if green, if you can see that color, but it's the last bar on each. And you can see the dramatic amount of increase in our professional services and construction and landscaping for 2023. That's direct cost share on the ground and project implementation. This is traditional cost share right here, which again, just has head and shoulders increased. I mean, over 100% cost share, in particular, a 319% increase. Yeah, professional services, this is all of our contracted restoration work to consultants and construction companies. That's a 375% increase over 2022. And this is a exponential growth in these areas that we're continuing to experience in this year. Really quickly, I also just want to show you guys this graph here. This is the funding graph we pulled up quickly in the work session to have conversation about. It shows this green line here is our rates and charges, which stays the same at around $550,000 annually. But this graph is really neat because it shows the leverage of that funding with our state and federal grant funding and how exponentially we return that investment back to Thurston County taxpayers. So it's a 542% return on investment, which you just can't beat. And it's just such an amazing accomplishment. The amount of funding that we leverage and bring in for the funds that our local community contributes. So those are the two primary pieces I wanted to highlight, unless the board has any other comments or
And that's
questions.
precisely why I wanted to pull it and spend a little second recognizing that amazing work and the impact we're having on the community through those expenditures. So thank you. So we will need a motion to approve the January and the 2023 financial reports.
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Doug, seconded by Betsy. We will vote on that motion. Doug,
Yes.
Betsy,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. So we've approved the reports. And we have the other item we pulled off the consent next, which
Okay.
is the
The MOA
yeah,
for
all
JVL.
of those acronyms.
So that's my thing. I mean, Jeremy Peters wrote it, but there, as far as I can tell, two unidentified acronyms, SLP, which I assume stands for Sentinel Landscape something
Partnership.
project. And I Googled REPI, Readiness and Environmental Protection Initiative, but they're not in there, and I just wanna remind people that it should be always called out once, spelled out once.
In the agreement. We
If
can
you
make
can
that
pass
change.
it on to Jeremy.
Yeah.
Or whatever is appropriate.
I think the fact that even board members who are versed in this did not know what those acronyms meant.
No, I had to look it up.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good reminder that we need to communicate to the public in ways that they understand.
Sure,
Yeah, so thank you for bringing that up.
you bet.
Anything further on that, Betsy?
No.
Okay, then we will take a motion on the NACD REPI Challenge MOA,
I move to approve it.
moved by Betsy,
Second.
seconded by Doug. We'll vote on that. Betsy,
Aye.
Doug,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. That has passed. That then takes us to public comment. This is the point at which any member of the public can address the board for up to 3 minutes on a topic that's on their mind that is also relevant to the work of the district here. I don't think we have anybody online. We have a couple of visitors here in the room with us tonight. Do you wish to make public comment under this part of our meeting?
I've talked to this board many times.
And please identify yourself if you would,
Okay,
Joe.
thank you, appreciate it. So I'm Fred Colvin, and we have Colvin Ranch down in the Tenino area. And I was on the board for 10 years, 12 years, I don't know. Whatever.
Forever.
Huh?
A long time. A long time.
Yeah. And I must say, your room is looking much barer. There's less stuff around than it used to be. So I understand you guys are leaving town.
This is the
Well-
final meeting in this room.
Final meeting. That's another way to put it, but you're headed south. Good for you. Good. Yeah.
Yeah, and hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Colvin. I'm Fred's daughter. So I grew up, on the ranch. I had been living in California for 20 years and just moved back home to Tenino this summer and have been, really happy to working very closely with my parents, Fred and Catherine, on the ranch and expanding our operation. So one of the things that we are working on in Tenino is, we're participating in the agricultural business park that's being built just kind of down the road from us. There's in two different ways. We will be opening our first retail store this spring as a showcase, not just for Common Ranch beef, but for all locally produced food. So our goal is to keep it hyper local and really highlight maybe some of the smaller producers in our area who don't maybe have great distribution elsewhere, but just really make it a showcase for ag in Southwest Washington. So we're very
So
excited.
that'll be at that site?
It'll be at that site. That's
Wow,
correct.
cool.
It'll be in the second building that is going up. But our much bigger plans, and this is a longer time frame that we're working on, is looking at how we can put in a USDA meat processing facility there. What's happening more immediately on that is on February 7th, the City of Tenino Planning Commission is having a hearing about updating the zoning for the Ag Business Park to allow for slaughter and meat processing, because today the specific zoning for the Ag Park does not allow that. So wanted to share that with you, and we would appreciate any comments and support of getting some more meat processing capacity. We think that the Ag Business Park is the right place to have that as a service for our local community.
Wow, great.
When it gets established, we'd be really interested in a tour.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
We use 4 meat processors now.
Mhm.
None of them are in Thurston County.
Really?
And it's not that we wouldn't like to, but it's just not here. So we gotta go to Winoochee. You folks know where Winoochee is? Gotta go to Mossy Rock. You know where Mossy Rock is? I love Mossy Rock.
It's not even Mossy Rock probably, right? It's
And
Salmon
Morton, gotta
Creek.
go to Morton,
Yeah.
okay?
Oh, it's,
Okay, we go up to Morton, so, yeah,
wow.
we need to bring some of this home, I think.
Well, it's something we've talked about a lot here, absolutely supportive of, and we'll
Yeah.
do what we can as an organization to be allies in that for
Yeah,
sure.
we appreciate that, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the city's, their zoning was probably written way before any ideas like this, so the time is probably nobody paid any attention. It's probably some verbiage they got from somewhere and they just copied and pasted it, and now all of a sudden. So anyway, they have to change the zone. Yeah.
Do you have a sense of their receptiveness to that?
Pardon me?
Do you have a sense of their receptiveness to
Yeah,
that?
so Wayne, who is now our county commissioner, who's the former mayor, has been working on this initiative for a long time and has been a great champion of that. The current city council is all super supportive, and the new mayor in the city is very supportive of this initiative. They all really are motivated and supporting this project and want to see it move forward.
Oh, good.
Yes.
And the city council did reach out to the district to ask some preliminary questions about their zoning and for the meat processing piece, and so I helped them craft some of their thinking there.
Great, good. Well, thank you for bringing that to our attention. It's good to see you. It's good to meet you, and welcome back to Thurston County.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Certainly been seeing some of your emails come into my
nice.
box,
Oh, great.
and yeah, so thank you, and up the good work, right?
Thank you.
It's
So I-
great that you have progeny who are interested in,
Yeah, it is. But Thurston County is, I think, kind of unique. It always seems to be that younger group of folks are just chomping at the bit to get into ag and farming somehow, you know, and I mean, it's a challenge, obviously, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, we've had almost all of our employees have come through Evergreen,
Yeah.
you know, so I got done with Evergreen, you know, I went for some part-time work, you know, that kind of thing. And so
Yeah.
it's been kind of fun to have, you know, the younger folks around. It's really fun to have your own young folk around.
Yeah, for sure.
We haven't had somebody else's for years, but now they're our own now. Yeah, that's cool.
I
So-
love that I'm still considered a young folk.
So that means I don't have to drive to Proctor anymore, right?
Correct.
Oh, there you go.
It's Nino.
Yes.
I think you can make it though.
To get meat?
Probably that's a
Their market, yeah.
Oh,
farmer's
they
market.
sell it at the co-op.
Yeah, we're at
That's
the co-op
right.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. You do know we have a co-op, Doug.
Yeah.
That's fun.
That's 3 minutes, I think.
Yes, okay, we will move on, thank you. We will close public comment then, and we will move on at this
Did
point.
we take more than our 3 minutes?
I think we took some of your 3 minutes.
Well, 3 for each.
Oh,
But we will move on to the next item here on our agenda, which is, we have Heather Wendt with us from WACD to talk about the Washington Conservation Society and a little something special that they've been working on. So Heather, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Well, good evening, everyone. Heather Wendt. I'm the new Director of Development and Engagement with the Washington Association of Conservation Districts. But I'm here tonight wearing my Washington Conservation Society hat. I'm a longtime board member with the Conservation Society. The Society is your 501c3 philanthropic branch of our conservation family. And I'm proud to be a board member along with the fabulous Doug Rushton, who is there on your board. He is our vice chair. I am the secretary treasurer. And Sarah invited me here this evening to tell you about a new program that the Conservation Society rolled out this year. And it's very, very exciting. This is its inaugural year. So everyone's very familiar with our Leaving a Legacy program. And that is the program that we've had for decades, where when we have members of our conservation community who have passed away, we honor them by inducting them into a book. And that's wonderful, but we thought, you know, gosh, it's you know, terrible to just honor folks after they've passed. The board wanted to honor individuals while they're still with us. So they created the Creating a Legacy program. And this year at the WACD annual meeting was our first year to induct members into that program. These are individuals who have made a significant and long-lasting impact to conservation in Washington State. And it is an absolute honor for us to get to recognize them for their efforts. And so we're very, very proud to do that. So this year's inaugural group is very special to me as a longtime board member, because all 3 inductees were original signers on the Conservation Society's Articles of Incorporation, which was amazing. And these individuals are nominated by their conservation district. So I didn't do that. It just happened to happen that way. The great late Norm McClure actually referred to these 3 conservationists as the 3 musketeers, because anytime you saw one of them, you saw the other 2. They weren't far behind. So this year we were very pleased and honored to induct Dean Longree with Clark Conservation District, Jerry Shealy with the Spokane Conservation District, and last but never least, Fred Colvin with the Thurston Conservation District.
So, oh, this is.
Did we get him? Did we surprise him?
We did it. We made it. All these people, all this time. I didn't lose your award the last 2 months. Oh my goodness.
You
So,
know, I don't remember signing the articles of incorporation. But I can remember staying up late at night, filling out by hand the application to IRS for the 501c3, and everybody telling me you can't do it, you gotta engage attorneys and accountants. I said, oh, you can too. And about 2 months later, I got it back. They said, here's your number. So, yeah.
That's great.
Well, Fred, we have an award we'd like to present you with, and we'd like to tell you why you're getting it.
Oh,
I mean, in
okay.
addition to all the great things that Heather said. So, and for the public record, for the folks on Zoom, Fred Colvin's here in the room with us. I'm gonna wave so the Zoom picks you up. Fred Colvin is a rancher whose family legacy runs deep into Tenino, Washington. The family-owned 550-acre Colvin Ranch was founded in 1854 and is one of the oldest ranches in Thurston County, still owned by its original family. 5 generations later, the Colvin Ranch family heritage continues through humane livestock handling, sustainable grazing practices, and land stewardship, and ensuring that native and endangered plants and animals flourish alongside its animals. Fred became a Thurston Conservation District Supervisor in 1996 and served for 18 years.
Oh, it's not- No wonder I feel so old.
Time warp there. During his time with TCD, Fred served as a Washington State Conservation Commissioner for 8 of those years, from 05 to 13. He's also a past president of the Washington Association of Conservation Districts and was involved on a national scale with the National Association of Conservation Districts. Nearly 2 decades ago, Fred became one of the first producers in Thurston County to put a conservation easement on his land with the Natural Resources Conservation Service. Through this unique relationship focused on conservation grazing practices that rotated cattle throughout the ranch on a precise schedule to keep them out of areas of sensitive prairie habitat while rare and endangered flowers were blooming. Fred helped to demystify the concept of conservation easements for our local producer community while ensuring that Colvin Ranch land legacy would continue for many generations to come. In 2013, Colvin Ranch won the Slow Food Snail of Approval Award with Jennifer's beautiful picture, which recognizes food businesses that embody values that yield food that is good, clean, and fair for all by committing to responsible sourcing, environmental impact, cultural connections, community involvement, staff support, and business values. Thurston Conservation District is thankful for Fred's continued leadership, both as a member of this organization and as a community leader. His stewardship ethic has been commended on numerous occasions and should continue to be honored. Fred is an iconic conservation advocate and land steward who really walks the talk. He is an intelligent educator and a conduit for bringing real challenges for landowners and operators, along with practical conservation solutions to the table. His on-farm land management follows suit and is an excellent example of generations of dedication of caring for the land.
Well, thank you.
And with that, we're gonna have our senior board member here, Doug, present the award.
You don't have to. Oh,
That's
Well,
You gotta
beautiful.
get the
wow,
pictures.
that is cool. Thank you very much.
All right, together, you guys.
Oh.
That looks great.
In addition to all the other valuable things you said about Fred. Fred saved my life once.
Oh, I can't remember what that was all about. I don't know what it was.
Okay, I'll probably get really red. My friend and I were given a talk at a conference. And I had a bright red shirt on and white pants. And I said, Fred, audience is behind, am I okay? He goes, XYZ. Part of my red shirt was sticking out in front of my wife. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
It just seemed like such a natural thing.
Okay, appreciate it very much.
Yeah.
And Heather, thank you. Okay, and thanks to the society.
You're very welcome. It's very well deserved. We so
Okay.
appreciate all the work that you've done.
Good, thank you.
And we have some cake too.
Wonderful, we can do that.
Yes, help yourself to some cake here.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate it very much.
Yeah.
Is there a, on that thing, does it show where the farm is?
No.
Beautiful.
It's trouble.
I've seen some of that laser work.
Oh.
Has one of the whole Sailor Sea.
Okay. All right.
we pop back to our agenda here.
Thank you so much, Heather.
Heather, you're gonna stay for the rest of the meeting, aren't you?
I think she just left.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna be around, so I will be here if you have questions.
No, I
Okay.
was kidding, I was kidding.
All right. Yes, thank you for being here and for sharing that with us. We're going to move into our reports here next. First up here is NRCS. And we don't have Lynn Kaut with us tonight. Anything written, submitted, or anything from them?
No, the biggest piece that I can share, because we're partnering on, is the upcoming local working group meeting. Again, an opportunity to hear from producers about natural resource concerns and help direct NRCS funding to some degree. That is going to be on February 21st, I believe, at our new office.
Okay.
And I'll be sharing that.
What time?
Let me send you those details.
Okay.
But I believe that it's 5:30 to 7:30.
Okay.
And there'll be
Yeah.
a virtual option.
Sent that out to the full board. That'd be great.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, good. All right, we'll move to the second report then, Department of Ecology. We do have Molly Page with us tonight. Hello, Molly. We'll turn it over to you for a couple minutes.
Hi, thank you for letting me take a few minutes in the meeting today. So I do have quite a few updates from us. So one, very exciting, we have a new non-point water quality supervisor, Gabe Rosso, who comes from Sound Transit. His name might sound a little familiar to Thurston County folks because prior to working with Sound Transit, he worked in Thurston County in the stormwater program. So that's very exciting. And I'm sure at some point he will stop by one of these meetings to introduce himself. We're also in the midst of watershed evaluation season. One of our other non-point staff recently did 2 different watershed evaluations on the Deschutes area and identified 21 sites of concern. This is a new area for ecology, so we expected a lot of sites. She's working with Marguerite to kind of work through those, and they have a recurring meeting every month to talk about progress and different sites that have come up and how the CD can help with those sites. Additionally, Chanel Hallbrook is our funding person over here at Ecology. She is looking to do some overhaul within ecology on how funding is distributed to conservation districts. So in the coming months, she plans on meeting with each conservation district separately to talk about different challenges they face. And she's looking forward to meeting with Thurston County. So more on that in the coming months. And I think that is all from me. We don't have any new complaints or new letters that were distributed this month. So that's it.
Great, thank you, Molly. Any questions from you two on that?
I'd suggest when you have the meetings with the CDs, that person contact WACD, Tom Salzer, and get his perspective as well for a statewide review.
I will pass that along. Thank you.
Okay, thanks again for being here. You're welcome to stay, and if you have other things to do, we understand that too. Next up on our reports would be the State Conservation Commission. We don't have Jean with us tonight, so we will not have that report tonight. But Doug has a couple things on that, so let's do it.
I was at the commission meeting, and James Thompson is the new executive director for the Conservation Commission. He had a couple of items I think you'll all be interested in. They're going to do some sort of minor reorganization that'll be principle based. None of us asked him what he meant by principle based, so that'll be good. He said wait for some announcements in the next few weeks of what's going on there. And they're also going to establish a tribal relations program. During the meeting, there was a discussion where the legislature said do things a certain way, and it seemed like the commission didn't. And part of that was do some public outreach and include tribes, and they weren't included. So that was brought up. So anyway, that's it.
Okay. All right, well, you can just keep rolling on. Oh, sorry, Betsy, you had something there?
Yeah, I wanted to know if we were applying for that, forest funding grant. I don't have it in front of me. The urban forest, it was on your news, your update that you sent
Yeah,
to
I don't
us.
know if we're applying or not.
Is that the one through DNR or is that the federal?
I'd have to look at my
I think it's a
packet.
DNR one.
I'll look more into it. Not at this time. We got a fair amount from the Commission for Wildfire and Forest Health. We are ineligible for some of these grants, given the priority geographies that they
Okay.
have. So
Okay.
I'll look into it and double check. It isn't something that I'm anticipating is on our.
I didn't know if it related to the presentation that Stephanie's doing next month on forest health, the forest health grant. I didn't know if they were related.
No, that's through the Commission funding.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for bringing that up. So, Doug, let's roll to WACD and then NACD.
Okay, we had a meeting last night. I love evening meetings, just can't get enough of it. Treasurer's report, we're pretty much on track with the budget. We're about 2 million, so that's in total assets, so that's a good thing. On the annual meeting, we actually made about $4,100, and that's the first time that's happened in quite a while. 3 CDs haven't paid their dues: Cowlitz, Wakayakum, and South Yakima. I won't go into the detail on why. WACD has set up a new website for updates on the bills, so you can sign up on that. And what it does is on the various bills, it says pro, neutral, concerns, or watch. Lunch day will be on the 20th. What's today?
It'll be on the 25th.
25th, thank you. I get these in the NACD stuff mixed up. It'll be at the Holiday Inn Express in Lacey. 7:15 start with breakfast at 7. And that's it for WACD.
One question on that. So the 3 districts that did not pay, without going into the detail that you didn't want to go into, are they intending to pay?
That's being worked on.
Okay,
My guess would be no, they don't intend to.
in all 3 cases.
They don't feel like they're getting the money's worth out of WACD.
Okay, I knew that was true for at least one of those districts. I hadn't heard it for the others, but okay, that answers my question. Okay, so NACD?
NACD, there's a new staffer, the Director of Conservation Programs named Dr. Kanisha Reynolds. I'm trying to find out what a Director of Conservation Programs does and how we can tap into that. NACD did send a letter about 2 weeks ago to the House and Senate Ag leaders saying keep the IRA funding, the Inflation Reduction Act funding, in the conservation title of the Farm Bill. And what that'll do is raise the level of the Farm Bill. So next year we'll have more. February 10th to the 14th is the annual meeting in San Diego. As of last Thursday, there were 700 registered. That's pretty darn good. We have 5 resolutions going to NACD from WACD. And if you really want to know what those are, I can comment on that, but I was going to skip it. And if you all decide to go to that, please let me know your cell phone number and your email so I can bug you if I need help in the committee meetings. And that's it. There is a written report submitted as well.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for the update on that. That concludes partner reports and moves us on to legislative session. Few things to talk about there. You're gonna start on this one, Sarah or Doug?
I said my piece on lunch
Okay.
days being on the wrong date, so.
Yeah, it's
That's not a
this
good start.
Thursday.
It is this Thursday and it does start at the Holiday Inn Express in Lacey with a breakfast and a briefing from WACD's lobbyists, a little bit of the pre-game energy, and usually there's some information too that they'll have for handouts. I'm gonna pull up our meeting schedule. Thank you to Heather, who may or may not still be on our meeting, but who made these appointments and put it together. WACD has takes a tremendous lift in scheduling all of these for us, and it's just absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Heather. So this is the list of appointments that we have currently you'll see one is for next Tuesday based on availability. A pretty good turnout. Sometimes folks are in committee and we can't get to them on legislative day. But these are the appointments that we currently have slated. And I'm interested if anybody would like to participate and join in on any of these meetings on Thursday.
I'm interested. I'm not sure I can make it work yet. I do plan to attend the briefing breakfast in the morning to hear what the lobbyists are talking about. But now that I see the schedule, that was gonna be my question, like, when are the meetings? So
Yep.
I'll get back to you on that. I'd like to attend. I can't say I can attend all of them, but I'd like to participate.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. And so I'll email this out. We just had some fine tuning of meeting assignments this morning. And so I'll send this out to folks. And if you're interested in doing that, I'll make sure you have the directions to the breakfast and that timing, or if you plan to meet here, a location and a time to meet up on site at the Capitol building too. So.
Meet you all down there.
Okay.
Are you gonna be participating in all these meetings, Doug?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I really would have liked to know this like 2 weeks ago or a week ago. I understand the scheduling issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just got this information, so it's hot off the presses.
Yeah.
And one of the nice things about it is we have seen an increase in the amount of meetings we get when they're scheduled through WACD. We have scheduled them ourselves in the past where we get the information sooner because it's just us scheduling for ourselves. But we don't always get as many meetings scheduled when we schedule them independently for whatever reason. So
Yeah, and I'd appreciate getting talking points,
sure.
what we're gonna
Yeah,
emphasize.
I was wondering, I assume you've developed those talking points.
I know that, I think the commission's got 2 handouts.
Yeah.
And then we can do the 1-pager from their annual report that's Thurston CD.
Yeah, so we have those pieces. We include our annual report 1-pager. We don't include a ton of things, but just the key pieces.
Yeah.
One of the biggest conversations again is around the conservation technical assistance funding, the CTA funding. Brent will cover that really well in the additional request for that, but that is, hands down the most valuable for conservation districts, flexible funding to meet local needs and priorities. So
Yeah.
just continuing to make that connection.
At WACD last night, she gave a report and basically said things look really good for that this year.
That's
It's
great.
10 million, Fred, as opposed to 1 million that we got last time.
Okay, so that is it on Ledge Day. So
Yep.
the one thing I wanted to bring up that I emailed out last week was this bill, and I don't remember the number on the top of my head, but it was the bill dealing with neonicotinoids. Yes.
There's the number.
Yeah, 5972. So when I was concerned because, so the bill was going to essentially make it very difficult, if not impossible, to use neonicotinoids in Washington state, which are linked to pollinator deaths and all sorts of bad things. And I was concerned that WACD was concerned about the bill, that they weren't immediately supportive of the bill. Well, what happened between now and then is there was a substitute bill put forward that essentially exempts commodity agriculture from any bans on neonicotinoids and puts the focus on homeowners and small property owners who aren't doing commodity production, where if you're going to apply neonicotinoids in those situations, you have to have somebody who has a permit and training from the state to do that. But it exempts, and I think it's a good thing that we're telling people that apply it in home landscaping that, yeah, it's a good thing. However, we're exempting all ag producers from that thing. And the one argument that was put forward was, well, if we ban these things, you might use something that's even worse. But if you look at the list of what they were proposing to ban, there aren't a lot of things worse than some of the things that are on that list. So I don't know if we want to take a position on that or convey comments to WACD. My own personal opinion on it is we need to get rid of all of those things for all uses. And if the problem is that you're going to switch somebody to a more toxic pesticide, well, then let's get rid of those too. We shouldn't be doing any of that.
Go the other way.
Yeah, exactly. So, so I guess the question is out there, do we want to convey either opposition, support, or otherwise to WACD and or the legislators that we're meeting with on Thursday?
I certainly support anything we can do to get back on the original track of banning them.
Which is what I told the
I
WACD.
mean,
executive
it's
director.
about way more than just pollinators. There's so many things
Yes.
wrong with them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the one improvement they did make in the substitute bill is they listed out specifically what those substances are that are of concern,
Hmm.
which is good. And it's a long list and you look at them and they're widely used in commodity agriculture.
Mhm.
So I'm seeing two kind of yeses here on this, and I'm also a yes. So I would say that we should convey our perspective on total elimination of these things to WACD. And we should let our legislators know at these meetings that we can't support the bill as it's been written in the substitute version.
Mhm.
I think we've already told WACD that.
Yeah. Well, we haven't done it in an official way because we haven't had a board position on it.
Yeah.
But I think what we now have is a board position clearly that we can articulate.
So do you mind, can I make a comment regarding that?
Yes.
And it's not to do with this particular bill, but in some of my other capacities, being involved in statewide issues. You have a statewide organization, in your case, WACD, and controversial things come up to the legislators. And if the legislatures sniff any kind of division within that statewide organization has less significance, if you will.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, the stronger the statewide organization is for all the individual parts, in this case, 30 or 37, how many conservation districts are there? 35?
45.
45?
Yeah, it was 47 when you were chair.
Okay, whatever. But if there's
A lot.
dissension within the ranks, right, the wider organization is gonna be less effective.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And that was the case in some of the other work that I've done is, and boy, if the legislators smell that dissension within that statewide organization, boy, they cut and run. It's a good way for them to get out, okay? Now, again, that has nothing to do with this particular bill. It's just like politically, how are you gonna deal with statewide issues? It's difficult because you got a diverse group of conservation districts across the state of Washington that are all part of WACD, you know?
Yeah.
And they all have a lot of different interests and so on, so it's just kind of a caution there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the challenges is, and it's kind of a black box in my view, how did WAC decide to take this position on it? Because it wasn't like they asked all the districts. It wasn't like it came out of a resolution at the conference or anything. So, you know, I think that that's an issue too.
That's the dirty laundry within the organization. Keep it out of the legislators.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Hi.
Thank you.
Can I say something really quickly if you'd like an explanation? Hi, it's me.
Yes, that would be useful. Go ahead.
Okay,
Go ahead, Heather.
I can give you a little bit of an explanation. I'm like hitting all the buttons, but it's like the clapping and the thumbs up and it's not the hand raising. I'm a hot mess over here. It's my second late night along with Doug. So the reason that WACD had concerns about the resolution is that these particular chemicals are used to treat seeds. And so we have a resolution on the books that basically says that we will not promote or go along with banning substances unless there are other alternatives. And so the concern was flowering plants, how that was going to be interpreted. Insofar as treatment of seeds, you know, especially dryland wheat seeds, to prevent them from being consumed by organisms in the soil. So that's where that whole entire, we have a resolution on the books. It kind of falls within that. Do we want this On flowering plants, absolutely. Look at my background. I'm the plant lady. Okay, I'm the pollinator lady. Absolutely not. We do not want that on flowering plants. But it was a concern about interpretations, and we did fall back on an existing resolution on the books. So I would just say, please don't think WACD was against pollinators in any way, shape, or form. We just have to fall back on the existing resolutions. And so that's where we're at, but please do express your concerns. Please do express to your legislators how these bills can be couched to basically promote agriculture and promote, food production, but still protect pollinators. We're all for that, but that's why WACD had concerns.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I appreciate the fact that not everything that comes up in the session is going to be 100% tied back to some action or resolution that the WACD has taken. The other thing that struck me about that particular bill is at the same time, there seems to be some motion on a new bill around organic and regenerative agriculture, which is moving in the other direction. We've got this other thing here says, no, we kind of want to continue to lock in these chemicals over here at the same time. So anyway, I appreciate your background on that. And I think we will convey our concerns directly to our legislators on that.
Definitely.
Thanks, Heather. Good explanation.
Very good. Okay, with that, I think we're ready to move on from legislative issues back to whatever is next here.
Governance.
No, we have one more item before governance. We have the tenant improvements at our new facility. As we saw earlier in the week, there was a price increase over what we expected on that. And so I think we need to get a little bit more information about why that was, what the impact of those additional costs are on our budget, particularly our reserve fund, and then ultimately make a decision on approving the additional costs for the tenant improvements.
Yeah, thank you. Our tenant improvement costs did come in a little bit higher, as you saw in my email, a little over $88,000. Our projected costs were, to land around 62. That was our kind of estimate that we had moving into this. The reason that they ended up being so much higher in this context, the city of Tumwater was requiring us to do a traffic study, or requiring the landlords to do a traffic study, because we're converting the office use type from this flex warehouse space to a proper office space. And the fee that we had anticipated for that study was much less than what it turned out to be, almost $20,000 to the city of Tumwater for that traffic study. And we tried to reduce that as much as possible. It's a traffic impact fee and study. So we did the study to try and reduce the impact fees, and it didn't take much off the top. So we did attempt and got some reduction, but not a bunch. The other piece that came in a lot higher than we had anticipated was the electrical work. For all of the network cabling, boxes, additional outlets, outfitting a proper office, again, with all of those pieces, all of the electrical ports came in much higher at $27,000. You'll see I added some comments earlier in your email from David around that. He said that's always the piece that comes in higher, and he's surprised it wasn't higher than that. So those are the two that really drove us above and beyond. We were able to see a couple of cost savings in trying to mitigate this, reconfiguring a little bit of the internal construction design without losing functionality, trying to reduce maybe a hard wall here or there to reduce some of our costs. So we try to, again, just reduce as much as we possibly can without losing any of the quality or function or structure to offset some of the costs as they were sort of coming in. So anyway, we talked about a strategy in December. We would bring the actual cost of the tenant improvements to the board for consideration of approval. And the strategy that we discussed was that we would utilize the funding from our cash reserve fund, that we have, that we've been adding to help cover things like cash flow originally, when we would have challenges with that. We've since revised our financial strategy, and cash flow is not a huge issue, but these one-off big expenses that are unforeseen can be. So another great use of that fund. So that's the initial piece. And then TJ, you had asked some additional questions, but I'll pause maybe real quick and just see if there's any initial comments or questions that the board would like to add around the tenant improvement piece.
Just the other piece of context I'd offer is just maybe for the two of you, certainly since you weren't here, we decided we wanted to pay these tenant improvement costs on the front end rather than financing them along the way, because in the long run, that saves us money, even though it's a bigger hit on upfront
Costs.
So that was a deliberate choice that we as a board made in December, or
Absolutely.
maybe even before December.
Yes, absolutely, because we'll continue to realize a rent increase. And so percentage based. And so if we did roll those into our rent, it would carry those costs much higher, and then they would compound. So yeah, it was a strategic choice there. TJ also shared a question ahead of time, what does this look like for our reserve fund? What does this look like for building back the capacity of our reserve fund? And I just closed one of my spreadsheets. Let me pull that back up again. Susan and I had some great conversation about this, both the fund itself and the balances, but also some of the strategies and forecasting initially for the future of the reserve fund. So, okay, open back up. So right now our reserve fund balance, you'll see in the financial notes, we're transferring the year-end 2023 budgeted allocation to the reserve fund in this month, and that'll bring us up to a total of $243,000 in that reserve account. The CEC fund again is a separate fund, and that total balance at the end of the year will be $113,900. So the one that we're working with is the $243,000 budget. So you can see we have sufficient funding for sure in the reserve fund to cover that. And then talking about moving forward, we have a couple of expenses this year that are one-time expenses. I want to bring you back to this because these again are not funding that not expenses we're going to be realizing in the next year. As you know, this year with our rent that was more than double what we're paying at this location, we didn't add any funding to our reserve funds or our CEC fund as we're digesting this higher expense load. So we have a one-time audit this year. We're finishing our conversion to Microsoft 360 and all of the infrastructure updates and software updates for all of non-negotiable, unfortunately, for our computers. And that's $12,600 right there of these kind of high ticket expenses that we're not going to see moving into next year. As we're looking at 2025's budget, we're going to look for a couple of things. One, we're in a new space. We have new expenses, and we're going to have to do a little bit of data collection this year. We're going to have to see what is our electricity bill in this new space, what's increased, what's decreased, so we can make accurate projections. But a couple of the pieces that we're going to pay particular attention to is our grant income continues to increase. You saw that red line. So with that, our overhead income also increases, which increases our unrestricted budget, which is where we feed into those reserve funds. So that offers more opportunity for us to direct more funding to the reserve fund potentially. This is a number that we can move. So that's one that we're going to pay really close attention to. 2024 wasn't on that red line graph, but it's above 2023. So we're projecting that that's going to continue to increase, and that rate of return on the overhead is going to continue to increase. The other piece is we're going to do, just like we do every year, a review of our program allocations against our restricted income. As you'll notice from year to year, our program allocations that we make for the various areas of our strategic plan ebb and flow. Wherever we have more restricted or more grant funding for certain strategic plan areas, we have less program allocation that year potentially. because we have less need and it's covered with grants. Wherever we have more need, we have more program allocation dollars. So that's another area. We did reduce some of those categories this year to be a little bit more conservative in our budget and help with things like the increased rent. So that's another area that we'll want to just keep in mind. We did a 10% reduction over 3 of those areas this year, and that was about $33,000. So going into 2025, we'll want to do the same thing, the same kind of analysis. Also, we have a pretty high budget for staff for the Conservation and Education Center development project for this year at $77,000. Again, is one of the top priorities for the board for this year. So we've accordingly set aside the funding in our budget to make sure we're spending time on that. And so at the end of 2025, and as we develop this phased approach, we're going to have to ground truth. Is that high, low, too much, too little, and that kind of thing. So that's another higher dollar amount for this year that, depending on what phase of development we're in, it could include more or less time from staff and more or less budget from our unrestricted. We'll be doing financial development planning for the CEC project, which will bring in additional funding down the road too. And then last but not least is once our move is said and done, the staff will be bringing forward an investment policy for the board to consider. We talked a lot about the local government investment pool and its 4.5% return. And we'd like to ultimately propose a policy that we keep the majority of our reserve balances in the local government investment pool, which you can draw from as needed. There's no requirements around that. But our projections anticipate right around a $14,000 or $15,000 return annually by keeping our money in the pool. So these are just some of the strategies that we've talked about. Ultimately, the big ticket is we're just beginning a new year and a completely new chapter, and we're going to have to collect some data and then come back to the board and continue to have this conversation and stay adaptable as we go so that we can prioritize putting as much as we can in terms of resources into those. So we'll have our mid-year budget conversation and review, and then right after that, we'll be turning over into the development of our 2025 budget cycle.
Questions on any of that?
Have it well in hand.
It doesn't appear that we have a whole bunch of alternatives. I mean, you've listed a bunch of where places the money could come from. And it seems like we need to pay the 88,000 and where's that going to come from? Which one of our funds?
Yeah.
Right, that was the approach that we discussed, and mostly all of what I've just shared is how are we going to continue to build that back and where the sources will look
That makes a
to.
lot of sense.
Yeah, that definitely gives me the information I was looking for when I asked the question. So and I still think it makes sense that we pay these on the front end and just, figure out how to, as Sarah said, all these other pieces when we get into the mid-year budget review. So,
Can I make a motion to?
Yes, sir, you can.
Approve the concept of pay the 88,000 out of the reserve.
The 88,000 for the Tilly Court tenant improvements.
Yeah, thank you. I was
Okay.
just about to say that.
All right. Moved by Doug, seconded by Betsy. So we will vote on the tenant improvement funds. Doug?
Aye.
Betsy?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We've approved those.
I appreciate David's comments too.
Yeah.
Good to send that out.
Can't wait to sign the check. All right, with that, let's move to item 11. We have a couple items under governance tonight. We have the election update. It closed yesterday after the candidate filings closed yesterday. So where do we stand?
Absolutely. There was a little bit of a memo in your packet, but in addition, we have 2 candidates that filed by the deadline and will move forward onto the ballot. That is Muhammad Ayub and Marianne Tompkins. I sent out both of their candidate packets to the board earlier today. If you haven't seen those yet, they're waiting for you in your inbox. We have also finalized our agreement with Thurston County. We're good to go to conduct the elections. We have hired our polling officer and we will be doing training next Friday. It's thankfully the the person is a returning polling officer for TCD. And so there will not be much training that we have to do. So stay tuned for additional information and marketing about ballot availability, how to, again, call or email and request those ballots. We'll be pushing out a separate set, now that we're in the next phase of the election, a separate set of marketing materials. The website will have the next phase of information on it. We've really compartmentalized it for folks because there's so many bits and pieces and processes and different deadlines for different things that we're really taking this phased approach in our conversation. So stay tuned for that. Any particular questions that I can help with?
I have one question, because I've been asked this by several members of the public already. When can they start requesting ballots?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me double check on when they are officially open. I believe it's February 5th. But let me double check on that for you.
Okay, all right, let us know, I appreciate it.
Well, I'm sorry, what, the question is.
When the
can we-
public can start calling us to ask for a
Yeah,
The
ballot.
fifth.
February
saw that
5th through
somewhere.
the 12th
February
of
5th.
March. Yeah.
Okay, so the 5th of
Just wanted to
February
confirm.
to the 12th of March is the voting period.
Yep.
Okay, good. And then the second thing, just in terms of disclosure, I talked to one of the candidates over the weekend. She called me, Mary Ann, who I don't know, but she called me to ask me a bunch of questions about who we were and what we did and whether I thought she would be a good fit. And my only counsel to her was, I don't know if you're a good fit, but I always think it's better to have more candidates rather than less and to give people a choice. And apparently she took that to heart and filed her paperwork before the deadline, so.
Name sounds familiar.
She lives somewhere out near you, out in the north part of the county, that's all I know. She's very active with Thurston climate action stuff. So anyway, but her profile is on our, we got it in email, so you can see who she is.
Just one point of clarification, because this is being recorded, the whole voting period goes through March 19th, but the mail ballot requests is through the 12th. So February 5th through the 12th, you can request an in-person ballot beginning the 13th, and then the last day is the 19th.
Yeah. Okay, so there's our election update. Let's move on to item B then, annual plan development. I think this is just a quick little process overview. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. This is just another sort of quick heads up piece that we'll spend some more time on at a future meeting. I was encouraging the board in all of our spare time, but to take a look at our 2023 annual plan. We'll be revising that and preparing the draft 2024 annual plan. Again, we're still under the same strategic planning process. And so typically we're taking a chunk out of that depending on the funding that we have. It's fairly proportionate. So if there are particular areas of interest or revision, just start thinking about those things. So when we present this draft to you in February, we can add or revise items as necessary. Simultaneously, we'll be gearing up for that strategic plan sort of revision and extension. We had a conversation about extending our strategic plan one more year to allow us great time to have a really robust process in 2025, since we have so much going on in 2024. And so we'll plan to bring that back at a later date to the board with any recommended revisions or adaptations.
It seems like in this next annual plan, there's gonna be a more substantial grant component, what we're doing there, but thinking of that trend line.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's a ton of we will be vastly vastly exceeding some of the benchmarks that we've set in there. And that'll be a really great opportunity when we do revise and relook at our strategic plan and extend it. Are there areas that we should just bump those numbers up because the reality is so much different?
Yeah. We have a little homework to do, which is to think about this before we come back and have a conversation about it. All right.
I think I've got a paper copy of the last plan. Could you resend it to the board?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to make sure we're all working off the same pages.
Would you prefer a PDF, or we have it linked on our website too, but I know sometimes downloading things doesn't work in all places.
Thank you.
Okay. Then the last item under governance here is to just take a quick look at what we're gonna do next month. We have our topic list in our agenda for next month's meeting. Get that up for us here. All right, so there we go. Looking at February here. Work session, we'll have a staff presentation from Stephanie, we talked about earlier today, in Forest Health. The standing items that we've agreed to earlier tonight in our work session, we're gonna keep looking at rates and charges, the CEC and new office development every month. So anything immediately we need to add to the work session?
I think a debrief on the ledge day,
Legislative update and a
particularly
debrief.
what we did.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
And if the board is okay staying adaptive to whether or not there's a new office update, presumably we'll be meeting in that new office, right?
There's no update, there's no update, yeah.
When are you
Okay,
moving in? I mean, when's it officially open?
Well, our stuff is over now. February 5th, the week of February 5th, we're anticipating opening to the public. So we're gonna keep
Oh,
our
okay.
front desk open here to the end of the month.
Yeah, okay.
Cool.
okay, so there's our draft topic list, and then looking at the board meeting next month, just kind of the standard items, minutes, financial reports, partner reports, et cetera. We will, yeah, okay.
So are you going, you're going to NACD too?
I am still trying to figure all of that out, and I am thinking of hopping in for just a very quick day and a half.
Okay, I'm thinking for the NACD report with Sarah / Doug.
Fair enough. All right, so with that change, we will leave this as our draft for next month with lots of time to add to it and modify it as we always do. And then going back to tonight, I think we're up to the last item on our agenda tonight before we adjourn, which is cost of living increase for our staff. This is an annual thing we do per our union contract. And good practices to be a good employer in a changing economy. So we've had this in our packet. We have a resolution we need to act on in order to provide this cost of living adjustment. And I will just note, based on the review or the evaluation we completed with Sarah recently, Sarah will also be subject to this COLA increase in terms of her salary, even though she's not a part of the bargaining unit. So unless there's any questions, we'll take a motion on the cost of living adjustment resolution.
I move to approve the cost of living resolution.
A second.
All right, for the record, it's 3.5% this year.
Is there a reason there's not a number on this one? Isn't there usually a number?
I think it's just in the header. I just have
Oh,
it
okay.
hidden.
Yeah. Yeah, it had a number on it. So, okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve this resolution on the COLA for 2024. We'll vote on that, Doug. Betsy?
Aye.
I vote aye. I vote aye. It's repetitious. So it is passed.
I noticed a typo, just as it was, we were ending at the dates coming up. I think it said that the March meeting was March 27, and that's not correct. Because that's a Wednesday.
Okay, let's double check that.
On the agenda?
On the upcoming dates
Oh, for the February agenda.
for the March
For the
meeting,
March meeting.
it said, I thought it said March 27.
Let's double check that, because we do meet on Tuesdays, not Wednesdays.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay, we could then just flip back to tonight's agenda. I think we're at the point where we're going to adjourn, but let's just double check that. Yes, we are. So we need a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
I refuse.
We'll be here a long time, Betsy.
I second the refusal.
I'll take that in the spirit in which it was not intended. And say, let's vote on adjournment. Betsy,
Aye.
Doug, and I will vote aye as well, so we are adjourned. Thank you all for a good meeting, another good meeting.
Before we adjourn,
Robust motion is made, motion to adjourn.
Yes, everybody likes that one.
Everybody cheers, yeah, oh, God, yeah.
the NACD fly-in, as you can see up there, is